In the deep winter of 1922, on a remote Bavarian farmstead called Hinterkaifeck, something began to stalk a family. Not a killer. Not yet, but something that watched, something that waited. And before spring came, every living soul on that farm would be dead. The farm was isolated, a world unto itself, surrounded by a dark and silent forest. It was a place where the winter fog clung to the ground like a shroud, where the world beyond seemed to disappear. It was a place where you were truly alone. It started innocently. Or so it seemed. In late March, Andreas Gruber, the 63-year-old patriarch of the family, discovered something impossible. Footprints. Fresh footprints in the deep snow, leading from the edge of the forest directly to his farm. But here was the impossible part. They never led away. Whoever had left those prints had never left the property. Or so it appeared. Andreas searched, but found no one. Just the silent, accusing tracks in the snow. Then came the newspaper. A Munich newspaper appeared on the property, a paper Andreas was certain he had never purchased. Where did it come from? Who left it there, on his isolated land? The family didn't know. They would never know. It was another small, inexplicable tear in the fabric of their reality. Soon after, the house keys disappeared. Gone. Vanished without a trace. Andreas searched everywhere in a mounting panic. The keys that opened the tool shed, the main house simply missing. It was as if someone had taken them. Someone who wanted access. Someone who was planning to come inside. And then, the sounds. In the attic, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps, walking back and forth, right above their heads in the dead of night. The creak of old floorboards under a weight that shouldn't have been there. Andreas, armed and terrified, searched the entire attic. He climbed the ladder, holding a lantern against the oppressive darkness. He found nothing. No one was there. Just dust, shadows, and a chilling emptiness. But the footsteps continued on subsequent nights. The family would lie in their beds, listening to the unseen presence pacing above, a prisoner in their own home. No one called the police. In the isolation of rural Bavaria, you handled your own problems. No one sought help from neighbors. They were a family known for being secretive, withdrawn. And so, the family simply waited. Waited for something they couldn't name. Waited for something that was coming for them. On the evening of March 31st, 1922, the waiting ended. The killer struck with a methodical, almost inhuman precision, using nothing but a mattock, a simple agricultural tool, heavy as a pickaxe. The murderer lured them out. Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and their 7-year-old granddaughter, also named Cecilia, were drawn one by one to the barn. Perhaps it was a sound, a disturbance with the cattle. We'll never know. One by one, in the cold, dark barn they fell, their skulls crushed by brutal, overwhelming force. Inside the house, the family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had arrived only hours earlier, was murdered in her bed. The killer then moved to the cot of 2-year-old Joseph, Victoria's son. He was murdered in his sleep. The evidence suggests Maria fought. She fought desperately for her life. But in the end, she too fell silent. The 7-year-old girl, little Cecilia, survived the initial attack in the barn. For hours, she lay dying in the hay, surrounded by the corpses of her family. In her final moments of agony and terror, she slowly pulled out clumps of her own hair. For hours she suffered, before finally, mercifully, going silent. But here is what makes this crime truly unspeakable. What elevates it from a mere murder to a legend of pure horror. The killer didn't flee. He didn't run into the night. Instead, he stayed. He moved into the house with the bodies. For 3 days, the killer lived among the corpses of the family he had just slaughtered. He fed the animals in the barn, walking past the bodies to do so. He cooked meals for himself in the family's kitchen. He tended the fires in the hearth to keep warm. Smoke rose from the chimney of Hinterkaifeck. To neighbors passing by on the distant road, life appeared to be continuing as normal. But inside, 6 people lay dead, decomposing in the cold Bavarian air, while their killer moved freely through the house, sleeping in their beds, eating their food. He was the new master of Hinterkaifeck. On April 4th, 1922, neighbors finally became concerned. The family hadn't been seen in days. The little girl had missed school. A small search party went to the farm. They found the bodies. They found the horror that had unfolded in the silence. But the killer was already gone, vanished back into the countryside as mysteriously as he had arrived. The investigation was one of the most intensive Germany had ever launched. Over 100 suspects were questioned over the years. Theories ranged from a spurned lover, to a vengeful husband, to a drifter, to something else entirely. But no arrest was ever made. No conviction was ever secured. There was no justice for the Gruber family. Decades later, in 2007, students at a German police academy cold case reviewed the Hinterkaifeck murders using modern profiling techniques. They unanimously agreed on a single suspect's identity, but they refused to name him. Out of respect for his living descendants, the truth would remain buried with the dead. The farmstead itself was demolished in 1923 as if to erase the stain from the land, but the mystery endured. To this day, over 100 years later, the killer of 6 people walks free or died free carrying a secret that died with him. The questions that haunt historians and anyone who hears this story are simple but unanswerable. Who watched the family from the darkness of the attic? Who left the footprints in the snow? Who lived among the dead for 3 days? And most terrifying of all, was it someone the family knew? Someone they trusted? Someone who had always been there, hiding in plain sight? The Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved. And some mysteries, it seems, are meant to stay buried forever.